بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين نحمده ونشكره على هدايته ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are going to start a new recording of a theme which is considered to be one of the most complex and dense within the science of Islam, and that is the issue of Irfan, or the theme of Irfan, the topic of Irfan, as well, or sometimes referred to as Tasawwuf or Sufism. The book that we have chosen as a guideline for our conversation for these sessions is called Light Within Me, which is a compilation of views about Irfan of Ayatollah Shahid Mutahari, Marhum Tabatabai, and Marhum Imam Rahmatullah alayhim. But each one approaches this in a different manner, and so we are going to go through today, hopefully focus on the part that Shahid Mutahari plays in this book. Huge amount of literature exists on the concept of Irfan, because it relates a number of issues together or themes together. A concept of tazkiyah, concept of sayr and suluk, Sufism, mysticism, etc., etc. Despite huge literature being available, the problem that we have is that these literatures don't really address the core of the issue, and that is the whole essence of what is Irfan and how it rests on the concept of ma'rifah and understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One thing that we would like to discuss, to point out here, that Irfan, and if we were to interpret Sufism in the right manner, it's not something that one reads and one acquires the know-how. Irfan and true Tasawwuf is a practical issue, something that people have to, it's a strategy for life. We know that Quran, at least on one or two occasions, talks about tazkiyatun nafs, and this tazkiyah, which means purification of the soul, moving from nafs al-ammara and moving higher, it requires a strategy and a path, and that path is the one that Irfan speaks about and addresses. So it's not something that we read in books, we have to practice them. The knowledge gained in these the readings that we have would be helpful, but we need to really understand that Irfan truly means a strategy, choosing a path and practicing these instructions, so that one moves away from one state of being into another state of being. For those novices that they have just come into or would like to hear or read about Irfan, couple of books, these are not exhaustive lists, but couple of books. In our literature, at least two books that kernel of the kernel, which is Sayyid Muhammad Hussain Tabatabai's lecture, but this is written and compiled by Sayyid Hussain Tehrani, as well as the spiritual journeying and wayfaring by Bahr al-Ulum. These are just two examples. When it comes to English literature, I would recommend students, or at least people who have no background about Sufism, to read William Chittick's Sufism and Carl Ernest's Guide to Sufism. Both of them are quite good books. So these are something that we really need to read before we move into the understanding of the concept of Irfan from an Islamic point of view. Now, if we were to return to the book The Light Within Me, which is a translation of these three books written by these three scholars, the first book that we want to focus upon is the book which is specifically written by Marhum Shaykh Mutahari about Irfan as part of what is considered to be Kulliyat Ulum Islami, which is a collection of the Islamic scientists or sciences, and the first volume addresses logic and falsafa. The second volume addresses kalam, theology, irfan, and hikmat amali, which means the practical hikmah, and the third volume usul al-fiqh and fiqh. Marhum Mutahari wrote these books to be used primarily during the period that he was teaching at the school of Ilahiyat, Danashkade Ilahiyat, and Ma'arif Islami in the University of Tehran, so that students who come to his class and have no knowledge about any of these sciences, they will be able to use them as some kind of a note, not as a textbook, but as something that the students could use. After his martyrdom, the institution that deals with the publication of Marhum Shaykh Mutahari's books decided that they would put them, collect them, and edit them. So second volume of Kulliyat Ulum Islami focuses on Kalam and Irfan. And Irfan is the one which has been translated and put into this The Light Within Me. Marhum Mutahari addresses the concept of Irfan and broad schema of Irfan and few of the issues related to Irfan in two of his books. One is Irfan Hafiz, that focuses on the debate at that time whether Hafiz was the famous Iranian poet, whether he was a really mystical figure or he was somebody just most of the references to his poems are some kind that he, an ordinary person that sometimes exceeds the limit and brings into his poetry some mystical issues. In both of these books Marhum Mutahari addresses the concept of Irfan. Irfan Nadari and Irfan Amali in Irfan Hafiz al-Shirazi. The book is orientated in the following manner. First, the first section of the book, Marhum Shaykh Mutahari focuses on Irfan and addresses a number of themes or issues. And these themes start by a little bit of historical background about Irfan and the debate that exists, particularly in the Orientalist circle, that Islam is incapable of producing anything as refined and sophisticated as Irfan, and what we have within these books have come from somewhere else. So he challenges this notion and goes through in detail to prove that the basis of Irfan that we have in Islam and true Tasawwuf actually emanates from the various books, Quran as well as the Sunnah. Dr. Nasr also in one or two of his books takes up this challenge and responds to it. Number two, the book was not intended to be a comprehensive book for Irfan and Tasawwuf. It was only an introduction giving background information to the novice people who would like to learn a little bit about Irfan, and those who intend to follow up and go into more detail, certainly they could attend in-depth classes that he provided in Madrasa Marvi or in Danishgah Ilahiyat, the School of Ilahiyat in University of Tehran, and they could follow up. But at least for people who would come to his classes, they have some basic information about this. The early part of this book, as I said, it focuses on addressing the historical fact and the debate that exists, and how the Quran and the Sunnah, the Holy Prophet, ahadith from Ahlul Bayt, can become the foundation for Islamic Irfan. Also, the meaning of Irfan and the differences that exist between Irfan and Tasawwuf, particularly in the contemporary understanding, this is something that again he follows up and addresses. After that, he talks about the difference between Sharia, Tariqah and Haqiqah, where clearly indicates that nobody can reach the higher level of Irfan and understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without following the path of Sharia, which means the legal laws of halal and haram. With this theme comes out of a number of ahadith that we have from Ahlul Bayt, from various Imams, that clearly indicate no spiritual development can take place, or getting closer to Allah can take place without a clear understanding of halal and haram and using them within our life. After this, he begins making list of Urafa and mystical figures starting from 1st century to 9th century. He lists in each century, he organizes mentions the name of these and gives a brief biographical description about these individuals and how critical they were, and what happened that they came into Irfan. And around the end of the book, he begins to talk about terms, expression and idioms that are used by scholars, by Urafa, in various books, such as and Sufis are using them as well: wine, eyes, eyes of the beloved, the eyelashes of the beloved, the hair of the beloved, etc., etc. These are concepts or terms that are used frequently by Sufis and Urafa in their poems or in their literature. And Marhum Mutahari spends some time trying to explain that they should not be interpreted as literal. These are specific language being used by these scholars to make reference to certain elements and in relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the 55 pages of The Light Within Me, which is a brief condensed version of the book Irfan from Shahid Mutahari. Covers very basic ideas. Books, William Chittick has got a very good book. The Sufism is also something that I would recommend people to read, and if they want to follow up particularly a more in-depth understanding of Sufism and Irfan in particular, or mysticism in Islam, and specifically Shia, then one could go and address them in these, whether lectures or books. The French philosopher Corbin, that spends some time with Allama Tabatabai, has a number of books that addresses the concept of Irfan from a Shia perspective. And his writings are excellent, whether they are article or books. These, what we have discussed in the first episode of our conversation, is only a brief introduction. After this, inshallah, we go into the second section of the book, which is the views of Allama Tabatabai about Irfan, the critical role of Irfan and Ma'rifah, and how without a true understanding of Allah and Ma'rifah and following the path of Sayr and Suluk and Tazkiyah, really achieving closeness to Allah is not going to happen. One question that was presented as whether all scholars, they say that life and the strategy would be easier if person or individuals that they would like to go through this are guided by some learned scholars of the field. Naturally, a question has appeared, or people have posed the question whether it is possible for somebody to attain perfection or higher level of Irfan without a guide, without a professor, without a teacher. Certainly it is possible, because we have, if we go through the list of individuals that Marhum Mutahari in each century, the name of Urafas that mentions, there are a number of them that had not studied under anyone, and they took this position and went up by themselves, which requires extreme vigilance. But there is another concept and theme within Irfan, and that is jadhabeh, or attraction, that occasionally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pulls an individual towards the divine reality without that individual going through the usual nitty-gritty part of following the command of a professor or a guide. Certainly having a guide that has gone through this is going to be beneficial and make life easier, but jadhabah means that there is a possibility, and those who say without a guide it's not possible, negation of jadhabah, which is not something that most scholars accept. Inshallah, beginning of next lecture, we focus on the concept of jadhabah and how this attraction happens, and a number of scholars that have Urafa that have been attracted to Irfan and have become unique figures within the path of Irfan, but they have never seen any teachers or any guidelines. Thank you very much for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.